we all agree with what was outlined. We heard what Bill had to say with his extensive knowledge as a commentator. And we heard the alternative view from many of these parties as well. But how on earth are we going to help them? A lot of people, they have not been engaged in politics. That's why things are so bad after all. This is where Turning Point Australia comes in. We have a gift for the state of Victoria. 4 projects to help fight Daniel Andrews. We're virtually declaring war on the man. So Turning Point Australia has 4 particular projects which we're rolling out over the course of the next month until the election. The first one is educational graphics to inform Victorian voters of what policies parties are voting on. The second is how to vote cards to help people best number their vote preferences. The third one is a volunteer funnel to help swell the ranks of candidates with volunteers for their campaigns. And the fourth one is, for now, classified. Until the 7th of November or a bit later, we'll be releasing it. I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you more on that. But for now, I can't tell you what it is at the risk of being censored. So, I don't think it's an overstatement in saying these are game changers. Never before has someone converted their following into how to vote cards and it gone gangbusters. Around the country, in the federal election, we had a big influence on giving people information about the parties. For example, and this is the first project, which is coming out as of the 1st of November, election graphics. Very simple graphic, as you can see, from left to right, roughly ranks which parties are more totalitarian than others. So you've obviously got the socialists on the left, and you've got the more freedom parties on the right. Now, look, sure, there's a lot of... This was for the federal election, by the way, so if you're looking for your favourite Victorian Freedom Party, you probably won't find them there. But as you can see, there's a very rough idea of where people land on things. Sure, you could tweak around a bit, especially on the far right end of the spectrum, but it's generally correct what's going on. Now, this shows people exactly where parties have... what they have in their interest. And they're ranked from small government, freedom of speech and libertarian, compared to the more Daniel Andrews types on the left with big government control, low freedom and totalitarianism. This was just one graphic we put together. It cost us nothing. By the way, all of these projects cost us nothing. And we're putting it out there for people so they have transparency and they can have a game changer on this election. This is probably our most useful graphic we used in the last election. We had the most likely parties on the left that people were going to vote for from the Turning Point Australia audience of 250,000 people. And we ranked all the different policies on the left-hand side of the different policies that are in their interest. So freedom of speech, freedom of religion, many of the topics we've heard here today, pro-life, climate change and energy. We also looked at defence and economics and immigration. Now, that gave you a very general idea of what's going on in the state. You see this sea of green on the left, which basically shows you where these freedom parties or conservative or Christian parties generally land. And on the right, you see the major parties and you see where they land. And it really highlights to people what the big stark difference is. Now, in Victoria, we will be updating this with new parties, with different policies, because obviously you guys don't have control over defence, for example. But we will be... that'll probably be one of the most favourite cards as well. By the way, you might also notice at the top there's a QR code which sends you to the how to vote cards, which I'll talk about in a second. For Victoria, you guys have a very unique voting system, and we are rolling out a very special graphic for your election. So Aidan McClendon spoke before me about the group voting tickets. So he didn't have the maps up, but the way this works is there have been some individuals running around, making deals, and essentially selling your votes above the line. Now, how does this work? You've got the lower house and you've got the upper house. Forget the lower house. This doesn't concern them. In the upper house, you can vote above the line or below the line. If you vote above the line, you can only put a 1. If you vote below the line, you have to put at least 5. Now, most people are lazy like me, and we vote above the line. Federally, you can pick 1 to 6, but on a state level, you can't pick 1 to 6. You only can pick 1, otherwise your vote's invalid. So what ends up happening in Victoria is if you vote 1 above the line, if that person doesn't get up, You don't control where that preference goes. And I think that's outrageous. I'm sure you'd agree with me. Now, what people have been doing, as you can see, the regions, there's 8 regions in Victoria. There's 5 on that image on the right, 3 on the left. What some people have been doing is they've been going around to the different regions and to some of the different minor parties, and they've essentially been saying, all right, what have we got? Let's say we've got 5 parties. All right, in this region, we're all going to put him as our number 2. In this region, we're all going to put her as our number 2. And then eventually, everyone gets a turn at getting all the preferences from that little conglomeration of five parties. So what could easily happen is a party could get up on, point something of a vote, very minuscule amount of votes. And some parties have gotten up in the past. This is an absolute design flaw. It's not illegal, but it's highly immoral. I don't agree with it. I think that voters deserve to know about this. And this leads me to the third graphic, which we're doing only for Victoria, because you guys are the only ones that have this problem. On the 14th of November, that is the date that these group voting tickets will come out, which tells you where your vote flows. So if you vote for a particular party, it'll tell you where it flows to. Now, most people in the past, they haven't looked this up. We're taking the hard work out of this. What we're going to do is on the 15th, so the day after, early voting starts on the 14th, the group voting tickets come out, which tell us how these flows happen. On the 15th, my team has 24 hours to release in each region, in each of the 8 regions, we're going to be coming out with a card which looks similar to the policy matrix, except instead of having policies on the left side, you will have the preference number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to the bottom. And what you're going to very quickly discover with the parties along the top, you're going to discover which parties end up preferencing which other parties. So in a specific region, let's say it's the West region, because Bernie happens to be here and I want to, I don't know, embarrass him. I love you, Bernie. In the West region, for example, the West Metro, which you saw in this particular map, the light blue one on the right image, you'll have all the different parties along the top, and underneath you'll have all of the different candidate names, and we will be color coding the candidate names with the respective party. So freedom parties, they'll probably have the green sort of coloring, and the major parties that are anti-you on a lot of these policies, they'll be in red. So if you see the red colors above, you can see that the freedom parties have been shafted, and you can see that your votes are going to major parties like the Labor Party. Now, this is just the facts. This is just transparency. So I was thinking about springing this on people when the 15th comes around, but I thought, you know what? I reckon this might, for those people listening online, I think that this might deter some parties. There's still time. They don't have to submit this till, I think, the 11th of November. You still have time to understand that if you go the course of trading preferences in a way which leads people to vote for interests and policies that are against their interests, as seen on this policy, you will be exposed with these very simple graphics, and these graphics will have how to vote card QR codes at the top, and we will be showing people who to vote for that are in their interests, and this is all free. I'm not making a dime off it. Now, this leads me to the second part of a second project. How to vote cards. Brilliant. If I may say so myself, absolutely brilliant. Why? Turning Point, I had a bit of a dilemma. Turning Point has an audience of 250,000. How can I weaponize that for an election? Well, people, when the elections came around in New South Wales, local elections in December last year, people were not sure how to preference their card. And so I said, okay, well, let's solve 10 problems with this. Put in your address. So this is on the Turning Point Australia website. It's down now, but it'll be up on the 14th of November, so you can do this. You put in your address. We don't keep your address. Don't worry. It's private. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to help you. This is all free. You put in your address and it spits out a how to vote card on the right side, which you can see. And the how to vote card has the lower house and the upper house on the right. Now, this particular project is something which popped off a lot in the federal election. So federally, we had over 250,000 downloads that we could see, but we have no idea what the upward limit of that is. The amount of screenshots where it'd appear as one download, someone would screenshot it and share it to a group chat of 44 people or to their family. We can't track that. So 250,000 is the rock bottom minimum. That 250,000 figure, that ended up defunding the major parties $1.4 million. That's because your vote's worth $2.90 in the federal election. And on a state level, it's worth even more. On a state level, I think your vote in the upper house is worth around about $6 if you get above 4%, and in the lower house, and in the upper house, it's worth, I think, around about $3. Watch me get fact checked about that. They've done it before. They don't like me, the fact checkers on Facebook. So what does it do? It defunds the major parties. That's great. It reroutes the funding to parties that you like these fine gentlemen and the other parties that are running, conscience parties, people that actually have beliefs and they don't betray those beliefs when they get into parliament. And it allows them to build a support from election to election, because that's the problem. We've been lacking a longitude of understanding and strategy when it comes to elections. That's where we come in. What else does it do? It reduces the margins for safe seats. What are safe seats? Well, as you can see, you've got all these different electorates. There are a lot of electorates where it's just like, there's no point in running there. Mulgrave, maybe, you won't beat Dan Andrews. No, I don't believe that for a second. I think you can beat Dan Andrews 100%. But there are some safe seats where, let's use America, for example. Democrat, California, Nancy Pelosi, leader of the Democrats in the lower house. No one runs there. Republicans don't like running there because they'll never win. Well, what these how to vote cards naturally do, there's a strategy built into them where we try to reduce the margin so that they're not getting in with 69% of the vote, for example, like Scott Morrison, but we slowly reduce it. So over elections, we chip away at that. Because you might have Scott Morrison today in the electorate of Cook on 69% of the vote, but tomorrow you might get someone else. You might get someone worse. So we think that Australia would be far better off if you had 151 marginal seats where politicians are more aware of what their community wants than having 151, safe seats. We don't like safe seats. We want to see them gone. And that's what these how to vote cards have built into the strategy. These cards, they also allow us to efficiently channel the votes. The Labor Party and the Greens, they're in bed together. As much as they like to criticize each other and jump on the news, their preferences transfer, like 90%? Something like that. More than 90%. They're very disciplined. What does that mean? So when you say vote Labor, the chances that they end up voting Green is very high, over 90%. And with the freedom parties, with conservative parties, historically, we're all over the place. We're all over the place. What these how to vote cards do is we guarantee you that at the top of the ticket, as you can see on the grid card, this is what we did for the federal election, we guarantee that the top people, before you get to the Labor, the Liberals, the Greens, the far left socialist parties that you see on this particular graphic, before you get to any of those left ones, we go through the conscience parties. So they all have a chance and we efficiently channel the vote. Absolute gold. This also allows us, our guys, they're struggling over here. They're struggling to get volunteers. Meanwhile, you've got the major parties rigging the system, blocking out all the minor parties. They create legislation to get rid of parties federally like the Liberal Democrats, just for example. And what ends up happening is the major parties have all this money to pay volunteers, $200 a day for, 6-7 hours. We don't have that kind of money. All our volunteers are there not because they're paid, because they genuinely believe what they believe in. Now, what these how to vote cards do, let's take the 250,000 download figure for a second. What they do is it secures the vote. It's in the bank. It's like beautiful. You didn't need to hand out 1 million how to vote cards at a ballot box to get it. No, these are in the bank. This is what people were doing. They were rocking up to the voting center at their polling booth. They were holding it up like, to just sort of ward these people off, these seagulls off. I don't need your vote card. I'm fine. I'm set. I know what I want. I know who I'm voting for. And this is just a resource. You might not agree with it. Maybe you think, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't want this Freedom Party. Maybe I want this other Conservative Party on top. You can twinkle around with it. But it's a starting place. It's a template. It's a suggestion, a recommendation. You can change it if you want. This educates people. It tells them who's running. It's nice and easy. It's, no matter what language, you could just follow the logos. If you didn't speak English, it's fine. This particular card as well, and this is for the Victorian election, normally, so for the white ballot at the bottom, normally we do above the line voting federally because you have less people stuffing the ballot up. For Victoria, we will not be doing that. For Victoria, we'll be giving the power back to you people. We'll be giving you the power below the line. We have found a way to make the design work so that we have below the line voting, and we'll be doing it in a way that allows you to efficiently channel your vote to parties that you like. Because when you vote below the line, the parties don't control the preference, you do. And that's what we're all about. We're about transparency, helping you understand the rules of the game and getting you back in the game, because that's what hasn't been happening. The next project, which is a new one for this election, is we're doing volunteer channeling. Now, I haven't updated this graphic, but one of the things we're doing with the massive audience of Turning Point is we're turning it into volunteers by having a very simple online form. As I said before, the major parties are paying their volunteers. With our conviction parties, they don't have the reach. So we essentially have a form online. You put your name, your number, your email, your electorate, and it'll only be shared with the parties that you click. So there's 9 parties we're partnering with in this particular election. We're not partnering with the Nationals or the Liberal Party, even though there's some good members there. We can't do it without going through HQ, unfortunately. And I'm sorry we can't help you guys, because there are some good politicians still there. But we are partnering with these 9 other minor parties. You can pick multiple parties on this particular form. So if you start getting these emails, guys, get onto it, because if you don't, they might have selected a number of parties, and they might get onto this before you. And so this cohesion, which is going to happen, is going to really help tell these. You're going to imagine this. You're running in an area. You have no idea how to get these volunteers, and then these Turning Point emails come through saying, "Oh, here's a person. Here's their name, number, email, and their electorate." So you know that they're in your area. And you just flick that through to your little candidates, and you're like, boom, 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 boom. Wow, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Again, totally free. We are not charging anything for this. We are a not-for-profit charity. We want to get our country back. We're sick of what's been. I'm 25 and I'm sick of what's been going on. Like it's really saying something. The final project, which I really wish I could talk about, is a mystery project. And what can I say about this? It's going to bring transparency, what we've never had in this country, and it could quite possibly get my website banned, not just me banned on social media. But I'm doing it because I think that we need to know what our politicians are up to, and I think that they need to be exposed. And this isn't like, this is, what I'm doing is I'm taking public information and I'm giving it to you as is. This isn't rabbit hole stuff. This isn't like, QAnon crap. This is legitimate information, which is just, they obscure it in the government websites that no one wants to look up. We're doing the hard work. We're bringing it up for you so that you can understand exactly what's going on. We want you to have all the information, and I'll have more info on that closer to the time. So the dates for these particular projects, if I may go back, the poor tech guys, they're like, Joel's flicking around everywhere. So the dates for these releases, the election graphics, they'll be coming around roughly on the 1st of November, except for the preference flow diagram, which will expose how parties are preferencing above the line. That'll come out on the 15th of November. The How to Vote card release, we're doing it as soon as pre-poll's done. So we literally are working non-stop throughout the weekend. We get the names of the people running on the 11th of November. We will have the How to Vote cards ready to go on the 14th. We're not sleeping. And we will make sure that we have that for day 1 of pre-poll. And then we have a volunteer funnel, which is coming out on the 27th of October, the end of next week, to start giving you guys time to get in contact with these volunteers. And the classified project's coming out on the 7th of November. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about that closer to the time. But thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for providing this platform. And I don't see why we can't make a difference this election. And hey, if it all goes to crap, we would love to have you in New South Wales, because we already have a form of the balance of power in New South Wales under One Nation and the Shooters, Farmers, Fishers and other parties. And we have a very real shot of increasing that balance of power, because our politicians are in for 8 years, not 4 years, and it's staggered in the upper house. So we have a genuine chance at creating a Texas for the country. You can't really do that in Queensland because they don't have an upper house, but we do in New South Wales, and at least there we could have a pushback. But for now, you can see that I'm not holding back. I'm not giving up. Turning Point Australia is standing, and we are declaring war on Daniel Andrews, and I'm looking forward to sharing these projects with you guys. Thank you guys so much. So Oh, I did forget, if you want to support some of my work, click the live stream. There's a link there if you want to donate. We run purely off small donations, so thank you guys so much. That's what funds all these projects. Not-for-profit charity. We're basically working off volunteers, so thank you guys for funding that. And I'm about